Of the countless horror movies that exist, and the countless new ones being made, many trying to replicate the feeling of the Halloween season, none come anywhere close to the heights of Halloween. Released in 1978, it made over $50 million at the domestic box office and over $70 million at the worldwide box office. In the 70s, mind you. Adjusted for inflation, that's nearly $350 million on a budget of $300,000. That made it the most profitable horror movie ever made at that point. And it was for good reason. Because the movie was just straight up good. In pretty much every way. The pacing, the writing, the directing, cinematography and lighting, the story itself, were all so new and novel. The movie revolutionized horror movies as a whole, and would define what the genre would look like for decades to come. It created the slasher subgenre, a subgenre that dominates the genre to this day. The movie spawned 12 sequels, games, books, merch. Needless to say, it is truly iconic. And it created an atmosphere, a way of filmmaking, a tone, a style, and a replication of the spooky Halloween feeling that remains iconic. But now, after nearly 50 years of being released, with so many similar films following it, a question arises. What really makes the movie so good? Other movies have revolutionized certain movie aspects and not been nearly as iconic and long-lasting as Halloween. So, what makes Halloween so special? Now, to truly analyze why this movie is so good and what made it unique, it's not as simple as going through the whole movie. It's over an hour and a half long, so I want to analyze one specific scene. And that is perhaps the best and definitely the most iconic scene in the whole movie. And that is the chase between Laurie and Michael. Filmmaking-wise, I feel it excels at composition and does wonders in building this film's tone, atmosphere, and identity. It's across the film, but this scene in particular. For one, they utilize something integral in the composition for horror, and that is shadows. Shadows are a core part of this scene. There are shadows everywhere. They loom over every shot, from the house interior with the lights off, or the exterior that's only lit by a dim moonlight. It invokes a fear shared by every person at some point, being the fear of the dark. Which isn't really the fear of the dark itself, but what may be lurking inside of it. The shadows swallow every scene, hiding the true horrors, making it so on top of the horrors revealed on screen, such as the dead bodies, there is still a sense of fear of other horrors lurking in those very shadows. The only source of light is the moonlight, and the light from the jack-o'-lanterns. And just the idea of having jack-o'-lanterns be one of the main sources of light speaks to how well this film as a whole captures the Halloween season. The composition of the shadows perfectly builds tension and builds scariness in the audience, fearing what could be in them, which are realized by Michael lurking in the shadows throughout the whole scene, stalking, ready to attack, hiding in the darkness. Which brings us to the Shape himself, Michael Myers. He adds so much to his horror, and the reason why so many killers have masks starts with Michael. Because he is simply evil. He is not a human being. He's a shape. The shape. Evil incarnate. Eyes are a window into the soul. But this mask, this blank, expressionless, pure white mask hides every aspect of the face, making it so you can't see the eyes, and not allowing a window into his soul. Which fits so well because he is a man without a soul. The mask reflects the emotion and humanity they hold, with him being an expressionless, emotionless embodiment of evil. And going more into how Michael himself is shown, in the exterior shots, they have wide shots of the house and the neighborhood, with Michael being a small part within them, always moving toward you. You have to find him in the frame. He isn't exactly the focus. He fades into the shadows, and it's almost like a Where's Waldo scenario. Rather than having close-up shots of Michael, they show him from a distance, building a sense of dread. We don't see him from his point of view or up close, just as Laurie sees him, a distance away, but moving closer and closer. This scene in particular has a myriad of unique shots that stand out, but all work together to form a certain tone and feeling. Even in the very first shot, it's at a slanted angle, not necessarily a Dutch angle, but close. I might be looking too far into it, but that angle adds a sense of uneasiness. If the camera isn't steady, the audience isn't steady, and thus vulnerable to the horrors of the dark. And on the topic of the music, it isn't in your face with one big effect when the dead bodies are shown. It's the same music, which slowly builds up the tension. In a way, it's much scarier. It's not just silence, but a continuous string of the same note, transitioning into a big effect, which then slowly transitions back into a continuous theme that farther builds tension. Because if the music and audio were silent up until the reveal of the bodies, and music suddenly played when they were revealed, it would, in a way, relieve tension, feeling like the terror has been revealed through the music. But because the music builds up to the reveal, and it crescendos, but doesn't stop, and transitions into a new theme, it builds fear, feeling like the real terror is still in the shadows. The music in general adds so much to the overall horror of the film, and fits the film so well, which makes sense, as the music was done by the director, John Carpenter. Normally, a director also being the composer doesn't work out very well, as both require a large amount of skill in each respective craft, and making them both work is hard. But John had such a deep understanding of the atmosphere and the tone of the film that his music perfectly matches the film, acting as an auditory interpretation of the film itself. With this scene featuring the clear best collaboration between the auditory and the visual, adding so much to making this scene so scary. I find this scene so interesting because it does what most other films wouldn't think of. It defies the norm. Instead of the silence and crescendo, it's a steady escalation of the music. Instead of close-up shots of Laurie and Michael, it's wide, steady shots that build up tension and make it feel more real. Instead of well-lit studio lights, it's dark, shady hallways and rooms, lit only by moonlight, just like a real house would be at night. The director, John Carpenter, clearly has an eye for what makes a film appealing to look at. It's so well composed and executed that I could mute the movie and it would still be amazing, or I could close my eyes and just listen and it would be amazing. Each one of these shots were chosen because they all work together to build the atmosphere and tell the story, telling it so uniquely as well. I like to judge cinematography based on if I could pause the movie at any moment and make it a painting. And this is the perfect example of a film doing that. The mix of these unique filmmaking techniques from the director and the fantastic score are excellent. All of these tiny elements added together form a perfect storm to create one of the scariest films ever made, exemplified in this one scene. Halloween lived up to its name in being the definitive Halloween movie and the definitive horror movie.